In 2026, the debate between macOS and Linux is no longer just a niche argument among developers or tech enthusiasts. It has become a mainstream discussion shaping how professionals, students, creators, and even enterprises choose their digital environment. The real question is no longer which operating system looks better or feels smoother on first use, but which one actually delivers in the long run when it comes to performance, security, and user freedom. And the truth, as it stands today, is far more complex than the simplified online arguments that usually dominate this topic. To understand this properly, you have to start with performance, because that is usually the first thing people notice. Mac OS, designed by Apple, is tightly integrated with its hardware. This integration is its biggest strength. When you run macOS on Apple Silicon, especially the M-series chips, the optimization is extremely refined. Applications open quickly, animations feel smooth, and power efficiency is unmatched in many real-world tasks. Even under heavy workloads like video editing, 3D rendering, or software development, macOS maintains stability and consistent performance. The system is designed to prioritize responsiveness over raw customization, which means everything feels polished, predictable, and controlled. However, Linux tells a very different performance story. Linux is not a single system, but an ecosystem of distributions, each optimized for different purposes. This flexibility means performance can vary widely depending on how it is configured. On lightweight distributions, Linux can run efficiently on extremely old hardware, breathing life in the machines that macOS would never support. On high-end systems, Linux can outperform macOS in raw computational tasks, server workloads, and development environments. The absence of heavy background processes and telemetry often gives Linux an edge in resource efficiency. In many benchmarking scenarios in 2026, Linux systems still demonstrate lower memory usage and faster system-level response times compared to macOS, especially when properly tuned. But performance is not just about speed. It is about consistency, optimization, and ecosystem support. This is where macOS maintains a strong advantage for mainstream users. Software on macOS is often specifically optimized for Apple hardware, meaning fewer compatibility issues and more predictable behavior. Professional applications like Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and optimized versions of Adobe software run exceptionally well because developers target a very specific hardware-software combination. This reduces fragmentation and creates a stable performance environment. Linux, on the other hand, thrives in flexibility but suffers from fragmentation. While this is improving in 2026, due to better packaging systems like Flatpak and Snap, the reality is that not all applications are equally optimized across distributions. Some software runs flawlessly, while others require configuration, dependencies, or even manual troubleshooting. For developers and advanced users, this is acceptable and even empowering. For average users, it can feel inconsistent. When we move into security, the conversation becomes even more interesting. macOS is often considered highly secure, and in many ways, this reputation is justified. Apple implements strict app verification systems, sandboxing, and controlled permissions. The closed ecosystem reduces exposure to malicious software. Gatekeeper, system integrity protection, and regular security patches make macOS a strong contender in consumer-level security. For most users, especially those who do not want to manage security settings manually, macOS provides a safe and relatively worry-free experience. But Linux operates on a fundamentally different security philosophy. Instead of relying on restriction and central control, Linux relies on transparency, permissions, and user control. Every process is governed by strict user privileges, and system modifications typically require explicit authorization. Because Linux is open source, vulnerabilities are often discovered and patched quickly by global contributors. There is no single company controlling security updates. Instead, there is a distributed network of maintainers and developers constantly improving the system. The real truth about security, however, is not about which system is safer, in theory, but about attack surface and user behavior. macOS has a smaller malware footprint in consumer environments, partly because it is less widely targeted compared to Windows, but that gap has been narrowing as Apple's market share grows. Linux servers, which dominate the internet infrastructure, are constantly under attack, yet remain secure due to hardened configurations and minimal attack surfaces. This shows that Linux can be extremely secure, but but it often requires user knowledge to achieve that level of security in desktop environments. macOS, in contrast, delivers strong security by default without requiring deep technical understanding. But this comes at a cost: reduced transparency and reduced user control over system-level behavior. Many security mechanisms are locked behind Apple's ecosystem decisions, meaning users must trust Apple completely. This leads directly into the most controversial and philosophically important category: user freedom. Linux is unmatched in this area. It is built on the principle that the user should have complete control over their system. You can modify the kernel, change the desktop environment, remove system components, and rebuild the system entirely if you have the knowledge. There are no forced updates in the same aggressive sense, no lockdown ecosystem constraints, and no restrictions on how the system is used. This freedom is why Linux dominates servers, supercomputers, and development environments where customization and control matter more than aesthetics. macOS, however, is a curated experience. Apple decides what users can and cannot change. The system is designed to be consistent, not customizable. You cannot easily modify core components, and many system-level changes are restricted or impossible without workarounds. Even software installation is increasingly controlled through App Store policies and notarization requirements. For some users, this is a benefit because it reduces complexity and prevents system instability. For others, it feels like limitation disguised as simplicity. In 2026, this philosophical divide is more visible than ever. Linux represents openness, experimentation, and control. Mac OS represents refinement, stability, and controlled innovation. Neither approach is objectively superior, but they serve very different types of users. Another important aspect is ecosystem integration. Mac OS benefits heavily from Apple's ecosystem. If you use an iPhone, iPad, or Apple Watch, Mac OS becomes part of a seamless, interconnected environment. Features like AirDrop, Handoff, Universal Clipboard, and iCloud synchronization create a level of convenience that Linux simply does not offer in a unified way. While Linux can integrate with various cloud services and devices, it lacks a single cohesive ecosystem designed by one company. Linux instead integrates through open standards and third-party tools. This makes it more flexible but less seamless. You can customize your workflow across multiple services, but you must assemble that workflow yourself. macOS gives you a ready-made ecosystem. Linux gives you building blocks. When it comes to software availability, macOS has a strong advantage in professional creative industries. Many high-end commercial applications are either first released or better optimized for macOS. Developers and designers often prefer macOS because of this stability and software support. However, Linux has been rapidly closing the gap with professional-grade open-source alternatives. Tools for video editing, 3D modeling, programming, and server management have matured significantly. In 2026, many professionals are able to work entirely within Linux environments without sacrificing productivity, although niche industry software still favors macOS. Gaming is another area where the differences are significant. macOS has never been a dominant gaming platform, and although Apple Silicon has improved performance, game availability remains limited. Linux, surprisingly, has made major progress due to compatibility layers and industry support for Vulkan-based rendering. While neither system is the ultimate gaming platform compared to Windows, Linux has become a viable option for many gamers who prefer open systems, especially with tools that allow Windows games to run efficiently. Now, if we talk about system updates and long-term usability, macOS offers a smooth but controlled update cycle. Updates are consistent, tested, and integrated into the ecosystem. However, users are expected to follow Apple's timeline. Older hardware eventually loses support, and users are pushed toward newer devices. Linux, in contrast, allows systems to run indefinitely as long as hardware is functional. You can choose when and how to update or even avoid major upgrades entirely. This gives Linux a significant advantage in long-term sustainability and hardware reuse, but this freedom also comes with responsibility. Linux users often need to manage updates, drivers, and system configurations themselves. Mac OS users simply accept updates as part of the ecosystem experience. When you combine all these factors together, the real truth in 2026 is not that one system is better than the other, but that they are optimized for fundamentally different philosophies. macOS is designed for users who want a stable, polished, integrated, and low-maintenance environment where everything just works within a controlled ecosystem. Linux is designed for users who want control, flexibility, transparency, and the ability to shape their system exactly how they want it, even if it requires more effort. The performance debate ultimately depends on context. Mac OS delivers optimized performance within a closed system that prioritizes user experience. Linux delivers raw efficiency and scalability with the ability to outperform macOS in specialized environments. The security debate depends on whether you value controlled protection or transparent, user-managed defense. And the freedom debate is almost entirely decided in Linux's favor. Though macOS trades that freedom for simplicity and reliability. In 2026, what has changed most is not the operating systems themselves, but the expectations of users. People now expect speed, privacy, control, and seamless experiences all at once. No single system fully satisfies all of these demands. macOS comes close for mainstream users within its ecosystem, while Linux comes close for power users who are willing to invest time and knowledge. So the real truth about macOS versus Linux is not about victory or defeat. It is about alignment. The system you choose reflects what you value more: convenience or control, integration or independence, structure or flexibility. And as technology continues to evolve, that choice is becoming less about ideology and more about personal workflow, identity, and how you interact with the digital world every day.